what am I gonna do next? What am I gonna do next? Okay, let us do next breakdown is One Dark Night. This is a sleeper. I don't know too many old heads know about this movie. 1983. I went to go see this in the theater. It had its moments. It had its moments. Also, there's a part in this movie that is relevant to today. I will explain that to you as well. So here we go. Olivia has a nightmare of a young girl being picked up as a hitchhiker and then murdered by an old man. Okay, so Olivia has ESP. The next day, 4 coroner wagons show up to a residence. Reports of 6 dead girls, 1 dead old man. The apartment's in shambles. The utensils are literally embedded into the walls of the apartment. While loading the old man's body onto the gurney, his hand falls down and a blue electrical charge discharges and cracks a hole in the ceiling. And the cops and the EMTs are looking like, what the fuck just happened? Okay? A spirit is then shown making its way to a mausoleum into a particular crypt. So we assume that this is the spirit of the old man finding its resting place home. Okay? So then we have the subplot. Carol, Kitty, and Leslie are hazing a new recruit named Julie and to the sisters. So they're all in high school. Raymar, the dead old man, was a famous Russian psychic. Olivia, the daughter, shows up to the funeral. She dodges questions about her father murdering the girls. The girls were not sexually abused. Raymar died of a heart attack. Okay? During the ceremony, Olivia gets a vision of a spirit terrifying female victims and dead bodies. She speaks to her father's crypt, saying she wishes she could have helped him. As Olivia walks away, the flowers are instantly dead. She places fresh flowers in front of his crypt. As soon as she walks away, cut shot, the flowers are dead. Okay? Julia wants to join the sisters. Steve, her boyfriend, doesn't want her to. After the funeral, Sam Dockstader shows up. He used to work with Raymar. Sam speaks on bioenergy. It is a renewable energy source produced by living things. Raymar was telekinetic. Raymar was also a psychic vampire. Raymar could drain a person's bioenergy and use the energy to move and levitate things. So he's partly telekinetic as well. Here's the whole kicker. Sam said Raymar would pick up hitchhikers. He would frighten the victims beyond belief, then drain their energy from the adrenaline he stimulated. This movie came out in 1983. 1983. The negative energy is what killed Raymar. Sam says Raymar allowed himself to die. He gives her a bunch of research tapes on her father. Steve then goes to visit Carol. He wants her to take it easy on Julie during the initiation. Steve and Carol used to date. So then later on, Carol and the sisters pick up Julie for her final initiation. Olivia's husband, played by Adam West, doesn't believe in ESP or bioenergy. Olivia tells Alan Raymar stayed away from her entire life. Olivia begins listening to the research tapes. The sisters then pull up to the mausoleum, the same mausoleum where Raymar is buried. The vase on Raymar's tomb, it falls down. Steve calls Julie's home. Raymar's tomb begins to crack. Olivia begins listening to Sam's tapes. Raymar displays electrical discharges at will because he can shoot out blue bolts like Palpatine from Star Wars. He can shoot out blue electricity from his body. Okay, the sisters plan on doubling back to scare Julie. One of the sisters gets out because she doesn't agree with the initiation. Steve goes looking for Julie at the boardwalk. Raymar begins drawing the energy from animals and using telekinesis to move the dead body. So what he would do is take one dead body, move it to scare the other animals, and then draw off their fear. Okay. Kitty and Carol break into the mausoleum and manage to frighten Julie. Raymar's tomb exhibits more cracks in the crypt. Steve then runs into Leslie. Leslie tells them they're at the mausoleum. It's said that children of parents with psychic powers often have inherent abilities, such as Olivia. That's why she has ESP. Raymar was adamant about not involving Olivia, which is why she never got to see him like that. Raymar begins to move the chairs in the mausoleum, and then his coffin cracks open and is freed. Steve breaks into the mausoleum. In the tapes, Raymar has an evil air about him. Olivia then uses her ESP to see the mausoleum. She sees Carol and Kitty running in fear. Raymar then locks the mausoleum doors. Raymar then begins to open the other coffins of the dead bodies. So what happens is they all crack open and the coffins come out and then lower themselves on the ground. And then the doors slowly open. And then the dead bodies, if they still had eyelids, the eyes will open up. Okay? So then Julie comes out of hiding from the flower room. She runs into Steve. They're surrounded by dead bodies, and she sees Raymar. Olivia then pulls up. Steve is knocked unconscious. Okay. So then the dead bodies begin to move and chase down Carol and Kitty. Now this scene for me, as a kid, when I first seen it at the theaters, always bothered me. Okay. The bodies begin to attack the girl, so they're moving. So remember in Exorcist 3, there's a long shot of the hallway, and you see the dead body just kind of float. Same thing here. So the dead bodies are floating because Raymar's controlling them, but then it gets surrounded, and the bodies just like start headbutting the girls, right? They just start headbutting, and then just more bodies start piling on top of the girls. So then as they get knocked down, they've been beaten up and headbutted by skulls. And then the last two dead bodies fall on top of the girls, basically killing them. Okay. Olivia then shows up. Steve's knocked unconscious. Olivia then approaches Raymar's body, because this whole time his casket is open. These electrical charges are coming out of his eyes. Okay. So then he has Julie in a trance. Olivia grabs a mirror and places it in front of Raymar at the electrical charges, and then reflects the charges back onto Raymar's body and melts his skull, destroying the body and the spirit, and all the bodies just fall to the ground. Steve awakens, and then they all walk out of the mausoleum. One dark night. I know it sounded kind of lame, but 1983, and the whole thing about scaring your victims and then drawing out the adrenaline, that was it for me. Mind you, this came out in 1983. All right, so that was One Dark